From fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Pod Therapy. Real people, real problems, and real therapists. You can submit your questions anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. By the time you hear this episode, America will have voted for its next president. My hope is that our listeners' reaction to this episode posting is awesome, a new Pod Therapy, and not who could listen to a podcast at a time like this. And now, broadcasting from the churn, that guy's Dr. Jim Jobin. I'm Nick Tangeman. It's time for some Pod Therapy.
Yep, so the week that this episode hits the airwaves, America will have had its presidential election. So obviously, as we record this in the past, we do not know what the results of that are. I suspect that whatever the results, it'll be part of the conversation we're having in November on this show.
I mean, we're not even sure if Hillary or Trump won at this point.
I know.
Yeah.
Man, we got to stop recording these episodes so far in advance.
You got to get really ahead on this one. I think it's going to be fine. I hope that
There's
nothing
no way
comes...
Hillary's going to lose to Donald Trump.
That's right. You're right.
Well,
you're
if
right.
Russia gets her emails, I mean, Trump asked for them. That's going to be interesting. We'll see. He'll never win.
Right.
I bet something's going to come with that.
Nah, don't worry about it. Comey already dismissed the charges on her, so
Yeah,
that's
you're
going
right.
to be over.
Probably no
worries.
surprises coming.
No
Yep.
surprises at all. So at least this one podcast in your feed cannot be about politics. I imagine that all the other
'Cause
ones
we don't
are.
know.
'Cause we don't know. Yeah, so this is just going to be classic pod therapy. So hopefully it's a relief to you. But yeah, and hopefully we're still not living in a state of chaos and there's not a revolution in the streets. Because that could happen,
I was about to laugh at that, but then I was
And
kind
then
of like,
you realized,
I don't know. That's
yeah.
kinda...
It's one of those uneasy ones.
It
I,
is.
did, I,
It's uncomfortable laughter.
did I tell you guys I tried to get my passport?
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I tried. You have to schedule it at the post office.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tried to go there, and then I get there, and it was really hard to get an appointment because they're booked out for months now because everybody's trying to flee, and so I'm in there, and we get there, and they're like, yeah, the camera machine is broken, so you can fill out your application, but you can't submit it because we need that little profile picture
But
of
you can
everybody.
get the picture taken other places.
Yeah, I got my first one at Walmart.
Exactly. But whenever you're standing there for your appointment and you're in your window and they say, by the way, the camera don't work, now your only option is to, as fast as you can, get down to a Walgreens, try to get that picture done. But once that window closes, you just lost your appointment. So we didn't end up getting it done.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to circle back and get that
So
done.
you're going to be here for a while.
Yeah. So when you guys flee, do you both have your passports?
Yeah.
Mine's expired.
Yeah.
I need to re-up it.
Yeah, I want a passport. I want it to go to Mexico. That's mostly what I want. The fleeing America thing is great.
Because your Spanish is so good.
A,
Jim
because
Jobin
the
wants
Spanish.
to go to Mexico.
I want to go because of those resorts. You always hear about it. Because, if you want to take a vacation, it's let's go to California and go on the beach. It's okay, or go to Mexico, where for the same price, it's an all-included resort where you never leave the property and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's where I want to go.
Yeah.
But you can't just get there with a driver's license anymore. You got to have a passport.
Yeah.
I also want to flee to Canada.
Yeah, so we went to a wedding down in Playa del Carmen. So we...
You don't have to throw your Spanish at me, Nick. Just say Mexico. It's all one place.
I'm sorry. Beach of Carmen.
There it is.
Uh,
Carmen's Beach, I believe.
Carmen's Beach, yes.
Where in the world is Carmen's Beach?
Mexico. I just said that.
I just told you that.
Okay.
Also, they rebooted that show on Netflix, by the way.
Did they?
I don't care.
Okay.
So anyway,
The best part of that show was the theme song.
That it was.
it was.
All around the world.
The theme song was great. The show was mediocre at best.
I don't even remember the show. I just remember the song.
It was barely a show. It was mostly a computer game in the library at school.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about Carmen's Beach?
I don't know.
Was it nice?
It actually was. The resort, you're right. I mean, the all-inclusive thing was really nice. It was beautiful. But then the beach, it was a big storm had come through.
Oh.
And it blew up all the seaweed and everything onto the beach.
Yeah.
And the smell was nasty.
Oh,
the
yeah.
water
when it
was
rots.
brown.
Yeah.
It was gross. And we were down there for someone's wedding, and they had a beach wedding.
Oh.
And it was not great. I mean, the wedding was wonderful. The wedding was wonderful. It was great. Awesome. But it would just suck to kind of have that background, because it's not the background that you were hoping for.
How long have you
for the
hated
pictures.
Mexicans? I mean, this is news.
Wow, that was a jump.
Jeez. I don't know. I'm not the one talking about their rotting beaches. and how they ruin people's lives.
I didn't. Okay.
That's kind of where you
You're
took
right.
it. Jeez. You know? That's
Well,
fine.
to answer your question, about 5 years.
How long? As I was telling you, I went there about 5 years ago.
No, but what's really funny about that trip is because when I first met Laura, she's half Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, so you know Spanish then? And she's like, no, I don't. My dad never taught us any Spanish. I don't know any Spanish. I was like, oh, okay, that's fine. So we get to Mexico. We get a shuttle from the airport to the resort.
Uh-huh.
And the guy asks if anybody speaks Spanish. And all of a sudden, they just jump into a conversation.
Her?
Yes.
Oh.
Her and the driver. And they're just going back and forth, talking. And pretty sure about me. I know some Mexican swear words, and I'm pretty sure they were about me.
Yeah, they're just slamming you the whole time.
Yeah. And then so then all of a sudden I'm like, I thought you didn't speak Spanish. And she's like, well, yeah, I know a
Keeps
little
referring
bit.
to you as hermano.
Yeah.
Huh?
I know enough Spanish to talk shit about you.
Yeah.
Es tu
anyway.
esposa? No. Hermano, amigo, you know. Okay.
Gringo.
Gringo. I did hear gringo.
Yeah, that word was
I
thrown
heard that.
around very liberally.
Yeah.
Oh.
And they made sure I heard it.
That was the word they'd say when they looked me in the eyes. Well, that's cool. Yeah, that's the only reason I want a passport. I want to be able to go down to the Mexican resorts because whenever this COVID crap officially goes away and our lives look somewhat normal, dude, ever. Yeah, if it ever goes back to normal. I have a lot of catching up to do on the life we missed out on in 2020. I feel like I really want a vacation again. I want to go to beaches again. I want to do the whole thing. So Mexico.
So that'd be your first place to go, Mexico?
Probably not first because it's going to take me a while to get a passport. But
Right, but...
Well,
Assuming you
maybe
get all
first because maybe we'll be
Yeah.
in this lockdown until like 2022. So
Who knows?
I don't know. But yeah, that's on the list. And I'd like to go visit Canada too. I hear they have cheap prescription drugs up there.
Yeah, possibly.
That's the whole reason you go up there. You go down south to get to the resorts, and you go up north to get hooked up on those pharmaceuticals. My boyfriend is selfish. How do I talk to him about it? My boyfriend and I have been together for 2 years. We are both in our early 20s. I've noticed he never lets me have the better half of things, and it makes me feel like he doesn't really care about how I feel.
Laugh at that, but I know exactly what you mean.
Oh yeah, yeah, I totally get that.
This could have been written by any one of our significant others.
I'm not laughing at you, Ryder. I am laughing because I know what you're talking
This
about.
concept. It says, like, I always give him the bigger slice of pizza, the bigger cookie. Not just those, but if we make biscuits and one of them's burnt, he'll take the good one for himself. When I get a salad and ask if he wants to try it, he'll eat all the toppings and leave me with the lettuce.
Oh, that's...
What? That's a dick move. That's a dick move. Just now, I hadn't eaten all day and made 2 sweet potatoes, planned to save one for later, and he'd eaten loads already today. He asked if he could have one and grabbed the big one. One was tiny and one was much larger. It just irks me because it's such an insignificant thing, but it makes me so annoyed. I don't even know how I'd talk to him about it because I just feel like I'm starting a petty argument. How can I even approach the subject, or is it a deal breaker? I feel like I'm overreacting, but I really don't know. He's always been like this and everything else is great. It just makes me feel like he's a bit selfish. Thanks, Anonymous.
Punch.
Yeah.
That is funny. First
It
off,
is.
I don't think you talk about it. I think you fight over it. I think that's the only way forward. Like, they reach for that cookie and you just smack the hell out of their hand. And that's how they learn.
So there's a few layers to this, I think.
Go
The
on.
burnt biscuit thing is pretty great. One's burnt and the other one's good, and he just takes the good one and just leaves them. That's
Okay. But you admire this guy. I can see it in your eye.
It's kind of
this
ballsy.
is you.
It's kind of a ballsy move. It's very alpha.
This is what Jim aspires to.
Yeah, I want to be that guy.
100%.
You don't care.
Jim always gets the burnt biscuit.
Yeah.
And he wants to not get the burnt
You
biscuit.
give him a salad. He just picks out all the good stuff. It's like,
all the pieces
you want a
of grilled
bite of my
chicken.
burger? And he just like pulls out the patty and eats it. Just gives it back. Like it's just a dick move. Anyway, go on. Go with your
You
layers.
break the Oreos, lick all the
Yeah,
whiting out.
here you
put
go.
Put
Thanks
the cookie
for
back.
letting me taste that.
No, okay. So I think one of the layers here, obviously, is sometimes we have this idea of ways that we show somebody something, but it means something to us, but it's so ingrained that we think everybody understands the same message.
Right.
Here's a classic example. Whenever we would go out to eat at like a fast food place, you know, you get all the food on the tray, right? And then you take it to the table, and then Jim's got a text.
I got a text, sorry.
All right.
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. All right. I just want to make sure. So Dad's got the tray. He gives everybody food, and then he eats off the tray. Dad always got the tray.
Great.
That's how I grew up. That meant something, right?
Yeah.
Now, then I grow up. I'm in a relationship. I get married, and out of a sign of respect, I take my food off. I let her have the tray. She never says thank you.
She doesn't get it.
Because she doesn't know. Like, it's so stupid. She has
Right.
no idea that means anything.
It's a subtle thing.
It doesn't, yeah. So I think there's that aspect where the writer has it, like, this means something to me,
Right.
but he's not understanding the meaning of it.
Yeah.
Now, that may be true for a lot, but I do think that this takes on a different layer now when you see the pattern of this, where it becomes painfully obvious that somebody is always taking the better of the two options.
Right.
Right? So now it's kind of a respect issue, because you can't say it's ignorance, like, oh, I didn't know it meant something to you to have
The burnt biscuit.
the not burnt biscuit.
I thought you
right?
liked burnt biscuits.
Yeah. Yeah.
That burnt biscuit thing is just such a move.
We're all really enjoying the burnt biscuits.
It's just, I imagine like this plate of two biscuits sitting on the table between them, and he just looks her dead in the eye.
Just while he reaches over slowly.
It's like taking on a fork and like taking a bite of somebody else's food, and just like do something about it.
Now, I do
I
think
dare you to stop me.
I think the first step to this is you're going to have to say something. I mean, you're going to have to bring it to his attention, and you're going to have to say, because I think there's also the piece, you know, the part about like, well, I figure you eat less, so I usually take the bigger one because I think that you want the smaller piece, you know?
Right.
Okay, fine. Still doesn't explain the burnt biscuit.
burnt biscuit's
versus
such
the
an
non-burnt
anomaly.
biscuit. Yeah, that's so...
I took
That
the bigger
one-
cookie because I'm bigger than you. Okay, sure. I gave you the burnt biscuit because fuck you.
because I'm bigger than you.
Because I'm bigger than you and I eat non-burned food.
Yeah, that, I think, I don't know. I mean, like, then there's another part of me too that sees this other layer, which is just, that's just a whole big pattern of disrespect.
Yeah.
And how much do you want to put up with that?
Right.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think the writer does clarify, though, and says, hey, big picture, we're doing really good, right? But this one pattern annoys me. It comes off as
Got this
selfish.
thing.
Sure.
Yeah, there's this one thing that's God, it's so funny. I think the best way to bring it up, because what I'm seeing the writer doing is struggling with, do you bring this up? Is it petty of me to
Yes.
bring it up?
No.
And I think that you can bring it up in a playful way, writer. It doesn't have to be a, hey, we need to have a relationship meeting and talk about this. But I think you can bring it up in a playful way where you give somebody crap for doing that, and you bring their awareness to the fact that they do that. You know, like if somebody cuts you, like Nick did that when we first started the show. He used to tease me for constantly interrupting him and cutting him off. And that helped me learn that I was even doing that, which is good. But he gave me the benefit of the doubt. He didn't assume I'm doing that because I don't like him. Just I'm dumb and I do that. So there was a playful way to raise my awareness about that. I think there's a playful way.
Yeah, I would suggest not approaching this by saying, hey, you always do this.
Yeah, you always do this, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
That's a great way to start a conversation if you want it to be nonstop fight. But yeah, saying, hey, can I get half of that good biscuit?
Yeah.
Do you want to split the good one? And
Or maybe just stop baking biscuits. It sounds like you guys aren't great at baking
yeah,
biscuits.
maybe, yeah. Make
If you got a
everything
50%
equal.
success rate on biscuits, maybe just go to Popeyes and buy some biscuits or something.
Yeah. I think the problem here is we need to get all these things to be identical in size. I think that would solve this
We need
so fast.
uniformity.
Yeah, yeah. You're picking very differently shaped sweet potatoes. Like the cookies aren't coming out. You know, really, you're the problem, writer. Your cooking is not equal portions.
Well, I was thinking, like, just take the sweet potatoes and cube them,
yeah,
and then do it that way.
There you
but
go.
then you still have to divide that.
Yeah, same problem.
So you
just keep showing
I
up.
think this is just I'm really wondering is like if you see this in other areas of the relationship. Like if you see kind of just this general, not, I don't want to say inequality, but more of just an issue of like, I take care of me first.
Right.
And then us second.
Yeah.
Or you second.
I'll
I'm
tell you this,
curious.
Ryder. Nick is taking this much more personally than Jim and I are.
Yeah.
This has struck a chord with Nick.
Yeah, I think it has. I think I've got some stuff I need to
Get some
talk
burned
about.
biscuits at home, buddy.
Yeah, this is definitely hit home for me. I think it hits home for me because I feel, and I will be corrected on this, I feel like I make sacrifices that go unnoticed.
Okay.
I know
the fast food tray.
Jacob,
Yeah.
his scotch glass is empty. Let him go. Just let him go. Go ahead, bud.
I know. But I think everybody experiences that in a relationship.
Yeah.
Everybody feels like they're making sacrifices that the other person doesn't identify or doesn't acknowledge,
Appreciate.
Yeah.
appreciate. So, I don't know. I would agree with Jim. I think there's a playful way in bringing it up.
Yeah.
In a way that isn't going to be like overly serious, but just kind of like, yeah, but seriously, you need to stop doing that.
Or I'm going to punch you.
I'm going to
or
cut
else-
your hand if you reach for my cookie
Right.
again.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to set these 2 cookies on a plate. One is closer to you, and one is closer to me. If you reach for mine, there's going to be a problem.
Also, just poison the bigger one. I feel like that's the screaming option on the table.
Just
Laxatives.
X-Lax.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
put
yeah.
X-Lax into all the bigger portions, and he will stop. The problem will fix itself.
Yeah, that's classical conditioning.
That's all it is. Yeah,
there you
this
go.
is a psychology show. We're going to teach you how to do this Pavlov's way. It's a very simple solution.
Oh, you know what? No, that's operant conditioning.
Yeah, you joke. God. Who even are you?
We just lost listeners.
Some psychology student was like, and I'm out. That
Yep.
was it.
Yep.
So, well, there goes that one. So anyway, Ryder, playful. But yeah, I would encourage you to bring it up. It's funny because the other piece of this is sometimes culture. Like you mentioned, like, and I think that sometimes is a male thing where it's like, oh, you know, you're the girl and like you're smaller than me or whatever. I'm supposed to take the lion's share. You know, Daddy gets the big piece of steak. You
That's
know?
what Chris Rock.
Chris Rock. Dad gets the
Daddy
big piece
just
of
wants
chicken.
the big piece of
He
chicken.
gets the big piece of chicken. He's knocking out those bills. Nobody says thanks. He gets one victory lap. He gets the big piece of chicken. Yeah. So I think that there could sometimes be a cultural like component of this too, depending upon where you guys live and where, you know, he kind of comes from mentally. But that's no excuse. At the end of the day, if it irritates you, as any relationship behavior can, positive, proactive communication, not when it's happening, but preferably, you know, in a time when it's not showing up, and for it to be maybe good-humored and good-spirited. To not say, hey, I realize this isn't the biggest deal in the world, but I'm going to poke fun at you. I'm going to tease you a little bit about it to get you to notice it, you know, and then maybe that you start to inch away from it.
We were at Sam's Club, and we bought.
I knew it was going to come out.
Oh,
I knew the stories were just bubbling right
such
there.
a chord.
we bought a huge thing of IBC root beer.
Uh-huh.
I love that stuff. It's
Uh-huh.
so good. She hid half of them from me. Like,
Because she knew you drink them all?
yeah, because we divided it in half,
Uh-huh.
and then I was just going through them like
Yeah.
left and right, like 2 a day. And she doesn't do that. Like she'll
Yeah.
have 1 a week, you know,
Oh,
something like that.
No, that
And
can't
so
fly.
she sees me going through all mine, so
No.
she starts taking them and starts like hiding them in different
You're
spots
fiending
throughout
for
the
her
house.
root beer?
Yeah, because she thinks I'm going to steal her root beer, which I would if I could
Yes,
find them.
Of course you
In
would.
fairness,
Yeah.
she's correct.
Yes.
No, I'm on Nick's side. I think if one person's drinking them 1 a week, then let him have them all and then just buy a new supply because apparently you won't notice that we're out. You can go buy more in this metaphor.
Thank you,
guys.
Jim.
This is not a post-apocalypse world, but it might be when they're hearing this.
Yeah, that's true.
So we should probably.
We don't know.
We don't know. Yeah, this will be days after the election, so the missiles may have flown by now.
No one may ever hear this show.
That's true.
Podcast broadcast centers might be down.
Yeah, that's right. Future civilizations may uncover this as
Yeah.
they're trying to piece together what the hell happened
When
in
someone
2020.
excavates the churn,
Yeah.
and they read the hard drive on this computer.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I like
It
to imagine
seems like
that's how it
everything
goes
was
down.
going well until this podcast,
We
therapy
we
started.
got pieces of the puzzle, but one piece is this podcast on therapy, and these guys seem to have no clue what they're talking about. Well, writer, thank you for writing in about that. It's a good question, and try not to burn the biscuits, and maybe it won't be a problem. How about that? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're discussing how therapists decompress after work. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
This week's Theraproducer sponsor is Robert Brownie Jr., men.
The Rob.
This week's trivia theme, in honor of Theraproducer Robert, is classic rock lyrics.
All right.
Oh,
Part
damn it.
2.
Come on.
It's classic rock, so you have no shot.
I have no shot.
Excuse me while I kiss this guy.
Okay.
I really hope that was it. I really hope I just ruined.
Just threw a dart and hit it.
Jacob will have this before I even
tossed
finish
out
the sentence.
a random lyric,
Okay.
and that's the one that Nick was going to do.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a spring clean for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on, and it makes me wonder.
And I wonder
No,
No.
why.
Still no.
That's not the right one.
no.
If you'd like to join Robert Brownie Jr. Mint and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up. Again, that's patreon.com/therapy.
It's so hard to do that with the other music playing.
I
while
know,
you read
right?
it.
Yeah.
It's such a winding lyric. Like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just like a short paragraph.
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed now. It's just a spring clean for the May Queen. Yes, there are 2 paths you can go by, but in the long run, there's still time to change the road you're on, and it makes me wonder.
Would I find this song on the second floor of a record shop, possibly? Like maybe I have to take the stairs up to the second floor to find this?
Probably.
Yeah. You think so?
I feel like these are some kind of metaphor
Yes.
that it has the hint.
It definitely
in there.
wouldn't be on the ground level.
No,
What the hell?
it'd be on the second floor.
This
No.
is all so over
Yeah.
my head right now. I know you guys are speaking the same booga booga language, but I have no clue. Is it up to Stairway to Heaven? Is that?
Yes!
It is Stairway to Heaven.
Oh,
It is
I only
Stairway to
got
Heaven.
that from the context.
Yeah.
clues. That was it.
By who?
Oh,
Because this is the song that you thought Metallica did.
yeah.
Who wrote Stairway to Heaven, Jim?
All right, so
I'm
I'm going to cross out Metallica on the list.
Okay.
Okay.
Are you sure?
Again, from context clues, I feel like that's not the answer I should go with. Stairway, and he's buying a stairway to heaven.
He's buying a Stairway to Heaven?
Is it building? Is he building a stairway to heaven? Creating?
I think.
Carpentry? Mason work?
He's carpentering a Stairway to
and
Heaven
he's
is the lyric.
carpentering.
Yes, that's what
The
it is.
Stairway to Heaven is by the guy that wrote Layla.
No, that was your second guess on
Clapton.
the last time,
It's
too.
Clapton.
And no, it's still not
It's
not even
really not Clapton.
I'm not
It's
even
not
sure
Clapton.
that Clapton wrote Layla.
No.
He definitely sang Layla.
He was with Derek and the Dominoes, got credit for it.
Shut
right.
up.
Yeah, I
It's not
don't
even
I
a
don't think
thing.
Clapton even wrote Layla.
What? Okay, you're telling me Stairway is not written by Clapton,
Correct.
We're both
and it's
telling you
not
that,
written
yes.
by
We're both
Metallica.
Yeah.
All right, I'm running out of classic rock bands that I even know. Led Zeppelin.
There you
Yes.
go.
Did I get it?
Yes.
I, honest to God, just shouted out the name of a classic rock band that I'm aware exists.
Oh, there is a line
Yeah.
in there that is buying a Stairway to Heaven.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
accept
there
your
is-
apology.
There's a line in there.
Yep.
Because I said that's not. I said that wasn't the lyric. And then I was like, wait, that does actually sound kind of right.
He's buying.
It is. It's she though.
Whatever.
She's buying a Stairway to Heaven. There's a lady who's sure all that glitters is gold, and she's buying a Stairway to Heaven.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
How do therapists decompress after work?
They vent.
They vent. Ta-da! Listen to classic rock.
You've just been life
Coach. This is something I thought about my last session that I thought I'd ask you guys. Therapists are essentially strangers that come in and look at the junk drawers of people's lives. All the stuff and debris people hide from public view, all the stuff that doesn't really have a place in the home that gets carried around anyway, gets shoved into this little drawer. What do you do to keep from picking up the junk and carrying it out around with you? How do you reset for the next patient after having just seen a rough one? So I think there's two questions in there. One is the bigger title of decompressing, generally, like how do you not carry it around with you? But the other one, I think, is a very apropos question, which is you guys spend an hour with somebody, and in that hour, you might be having a deep dive into something that could be extremely meaningful, extremely painful. And it could be hot tears and trauma and scary scenes. And then somehow you've got to walk that human down the hallway, back, in the pre-COVID land, say goodbye to them in the lobby, grab your next appointment, walk them back. How do you do a mental shift between those? What do you do, Nick?
I mean, it's been a while since I've done clinical work. But for me, it kind of goes to one of the things that I talked about several shows ago when we were giving advice to the prosecutor who was talking about
taking your pants off.
Debriefing.
Yeah.
Having to take
pants off.
No. Having to see crime scene photos, blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that we talked about was I talked about changing the way that we view empathy. Because traditionally, just instinctively, when we talk about empathy, we empathize by putting ourselves in that person's position, right? So we say, that would be difficult for me in that position, right? If this happened to me, and that's where sometimes it can be very dangerous. And instead, we can display empathy by, that must be terrible for them. And just that little shift of, we can experience what that may possibly be like, but we're not going to put ourselves into that position. Because once you start putting yourself in there, then that's when you have trouble getting yourself back out. You can still display empathy and be empathetic without actually being there in that spot in your mind. Yeah. Not putting yourself in that role.
Yeah.
So that's something that's always helped me. But then also, I think I learned very quickly early on to not take work home with me. And it can be difficult session to session, but at the end of the day, I really try to have a mental picture of, that's work, and I leave work, get in my car, and I drive home, and those are two separate environments. Yeah. They do not intermix at all.
Right. You're able to kind of leave work at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think there's two pieces of this. Like, one, I think Nick's talking about how we kind of avoid vicarious trauma, which can happen to us if we're like in that secondhand experience. There are some cases that can really shake me, and those ones are very hard. And there's I can handle a lot of trauma. I can handle like a lot of scary things. I'm good with that. I can definitely meet people and do my job. There's just a few types of trauma that, for some reason, hurt me personally to hear about, because they're scary to me in some way, and they're just something that I have to look. I can't look directly at. Like, and so I manage those cases slightly differently. But then those are the only ones that I can think of that stick to me sometimes after work, where I'll still be thinking about that. Usually it has to do with kids, and so like those ones are hard cases for me. I usually try not to be a therapist who works with too many children. In the telehealth environment, I have less selection when it comes to that, but that's part of the reason why, because I just don't like to carry that thought around with me. But when it comes from session to session, because for me, most of my career in private practice, other therapists chide me for this, but I'm notorious. I don't take breaks. So other therapists, a therapeutic hour is supposed to be 50 minutes. And then they say at 50 minutes, hey, it was great talking to you. Let's go ahead and wrap. They take you back to the lobby, and they have, in theory, 10 clock minutes to themselves to write their notes if they want to do that then, go to the bathroom, wash their hands, take a phone call, reply to a text, check their email. I don't do that. Notoriously, I do 60-minute hours, and from bell to bell, I am with you, and then I walk you out to the lobby and grab the next person on the way back in. And I do the same thing in Zoom. Like, I have a little waiting room, and like the next person's waiting there for me, and I literally exit the one person and go grab the next person without a barely a heartbeat in between. But for me, I don't need so much a palate cleanser to like get back to default. For me, the next case washes away anything that I was thinking with the previous case, because I'm interacting with that human, and that's an immediate new thing, right? And I'm thinking about their notes, and I'm thinking about what their story is, and I'm thinking about what we're going to be talking about, and I'm opening up the session, and they're talking. And to me, it's almost like whenever you're driving in a car and you listen to songs on the radio. One song on the radio could be very contemplative and deep and meaningful and really get your mind going. And then when that song ends and the next song seamlessly begins, you might even forget what that last song was, right? Because now you're just into the next song.
Right.
And I think that there's a truth to that in therapy for me that allows me to kind of glide from case to case and patient to patient without necessarily keeping the stuff that I just encountered in my pockets throughout the day. Like the next one actually is a fresh, new experience, and that washes away whatever I was working on with that other person. So that's part of my truth. The other one I think is your metaphor of like carrying around people's junk drawers with us. I think part of our training is that, you know, there might be therapists that really struggle with that, and I'm sure they exist, you know, but I think a large part of our training is, and I think this is true of healthcare generally, we're able to not do that because we're trained to see you as this case and this project and this treatment that we're doing, and there's just a lot of what we do that is non-personal in that way.
Is too much empathy a bad thing for a therapist, or can it be?
I think
Yeah.
That's
I think that's usually a recipe for burnout.
that's
So
usually
it's
rookie stuff.
It's I mean, it's usually a balance of trying to find that that balance of being empathetic so you can do your job,
Right.
but being distant enough where you can not
Take it home.
take it home. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's tough.
And it is tricky, right? Because like one of the things that I'm really, I think, proud of in my style, everybody has their own style, everybody does their own thing. And I think therapists generally are equally effective. The data seems to bear that out. Though I do think one of the most valuable things in the treatment is who you partner with as a therapist and that connection that you build together. But for me, like, I am a softie. Like if my person is, you know, going through something that I really honestly connect to, I might get teary-eyed, you know, and be with them in that moment. And I'm 100% with them.
Sure.
So I am actually affected, you know, by them in a very genuine way. It's not an act. I didn't like go to Oscar Academy and like learn how to cry on command. Like, no, if I seem affected in my session by my patient, that's because I am. And like that's genuinely what I'm going through. But I think that even though I could hear something horrible and difficult and really be in pain with a person, the next person also imprints upon me too. And that can also bring me away from wherever I just was.
Yeah.
And I think throughout the day, after I do, you know, all my sessions and my caseload for the day, I'll usually spend some time meditating and like reflecting on my patients for the day, going over my notes, checking on each thing. And then I'll recall things, you know, that happened during that day. But I think for me, having, you know, kind of that ability to kind of just morph and go with the next thing, it helps because then I don't carry it around.
I mean, there's been some cases that I've had that have affected me more than others.
Yeah.
Where I do end up taking it home with me, and I think about it throughout the week or later on that night, or something that just kind of sticks with me.
Yeah.
But then I've always just kind of said, this isn't about me.
Right.
And I just kind of repeat that. This isn't about me. This isn't my thing. And I almost kind of do it in a way that's like kind of maybe a little harsh even on myself, of being like, wow, that's very arrogant of me to think that this is about me.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
kind of push yourself back.
Yeah. To kind of think like, okay, no, this isn't, you know, I'm not that important.
Right.
This is their deal, and it's really important for them.
Right.
And by me trying to make it about me, I feel like I'm kind of taking it away from them.
Right.
It's their thing. That's where it should stay.
Yeah, I've definitely had that internal conversation. The only cases that I can think of that have wrecked me, that I come home with them and it's hard, is suicides.
Sure.
You know, those are really hard.
Yeah.
Even if you've had a patient who you haven't seen in a while and then you discover or hear that they committed suicide, always takes my breath away. And that's me like collapsing backward on a chair kind of thing and just like blindly staring at a window while like my thoughts are racing and I'm just like gathering what's happened.
Yeah.
That's always a big deal.
Is that because that's more relatable? Is it that's not the right word. Relatable is not the right word. Is that because that is it's easier to see that in other people that you know or other patients that you have, do you think?
Yeah. I think suicide. It's just for me. I think it's a personal piece of that, which is that death scares me, and
Okay,
so on
sure.
a personal level, there's probably some attachment to the fear of death, and that it got one of my people, you know. And then there's always that other side of it, which is like, that's kind of always the enemy of healthcare, you know. Like that's what you're doing, whether you're dealing with anxiety or you're dealing with indigestion or you're dealing with cancer, you're always part of team living and trying to keep away from team death and unhealth, right?
That's kind of where
Okay.
the part that I think affects me is kind of more along that line, because I would put overdoses along the same line,
Right.
given my experience, my
Absolutely.
line of work.
Yep.
And I think the thing that bothers me about that is just the finality of it.
Yes.
That's it. Because for everything else, I was like, okay, well, we can still fix
We're still
that.
working on it.
We
Oh,
can
yeah.
still bring that back. That, you're just like, that's it. It's just done. There's nothing else you can do.
Close that file.
Close. Yep, it's closed. It's done.
It's
So.
game over. And I think overdoses definitely, oh God, those shake me up too.
Mhm.
Suicides have always shaken me up the most. And I think one of the hardest pieces for me, as the type of style that I am as a therapist, I'm really, really, really trying to understand this human on a real internal level. Like I really pride myself on being able to imagine the world through their eyes. And if I'm getting more and more accurate with how they think and who they are, then I'm better at actually imagining and simulating in my own mind what they're going through. And when I create that kind of a bond, and then I imagine somebody being so overwhelmed and so desperate and so consumed with despair that they end their lives, that sticks to me. Because I'm imagining that human who I've spent so much time with, who I care very much about, and in their last minutes, and giving up. And I'm just horrified by that and terrified, and just it breaks, you know, inside of me. It's just a really hard thing.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the ones that stick to you. And it's such a loss, too. You know, you look at it and go, God, you know, lost this person, you don't get them back. Like you said, the finality, I can't do anything about this. And
Well,
then
also,
you're sitting there with it.
Professional or otherwise, you build a relationship with someone, and
Yep.
it's a professional relationship, but it's also a highly personal relationship.
Yes.
And
Very.
and if you have I've had multiple friends who have killed themselves, and if you have a close relationship with a person, I've got to think it doesn't matter if it's through a professional lens or through just a personal lens. You know, that's going to be a really tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because you know that person, you know about their loved ones, you know about their pets, you know about their daily routines. You have all this information, and it's got to be tough to look at that and say, like, well, I have that information because they paid me whatever an hour to
Right.
tell me that information and to talk to me. You know, in that lizard brain part of you, that doesn't matter. That's just
Right.
That's a co-human being.
Right. You
Right.
could try to detach from it, but you know, I think, Ryder, you're there's some truth to what you're saying, where yeah, we sometimes keep stuff in our pockets. Also, I think that it's not such a burden, though. It's not a bad thing. Like, yeah, humans are affected by what they do with their lives. You know, you're affected by the job you have. You're affected by the relationships that happen to you. And that's okay. And even the suicides that I've experienced are really difficult cases. I feel, even if they are tough emotions sometimes, that doesn't mean that they're bad for me, and that doesn't mean that they're not productive. You know, they can still be extremely productive and really help me become a stronger therapist. And to tell you the truth, sometimes I'll bring those into sessions. You know, sometimes when I'm chit-chatting with a patient, you know, or if I have a bad thing happen, like a suicide, I don't necessarily keep that to myself. You know, like it depends on the cases, but for some of those cases, I'll use this as a teachable, like, icon to them. If they're talking about depression or sometimes flirting with suicidal ideation, I'll say, you know, how was your week? And we'll chit-chat, and they'll say, how are you doing, Jim? And I'll say, oh, well, if I can be honest with you, you know, it's been a hard week. Oh, why, Jim? Well, I actually had a patient die this week, you know, that was suicide. Oh my gosh, that really happened. Yes, it does quite a bit. It's a tough one. You know, do you mind if I share with you a little bit of, you know, and why am I doing that? It's not to process my grief. It's obviously to role play and to teach them the raw human emotion that really happens when somebody dies is not a game. And then sometimes that's actually a really good thing in therapy too. So,
Well, I'm thinking like all of the overdoses that I've had to deal with, they've all been in residential programs, treatment programs.
in rehab, yeah.
And they weren't all they didn't all occur there. Most of them didn't occur there. That happened when they left.
Yeah.
And then we hear word from a family member or somebody who is a friend who is keeping in contact. And then I'm there with the people that they were still in treatment with, right? So they're processing this person's death because they're still in rehab after this other person had discharged. So I have to work through that. And in a lot of ways, that's good for me because it hits me and it affects me. But then I have to jump into a professional role. Like, okay, but it's my job to captain this ship.
Right.
So I have to meet with all these folks. We have to process this. We got to go over it, all of that. So sometimes that helps. And I don't bring it up in order for me to process it.
Right.
It kind of happens as a result of me helping other people.
Yes.
So.
Does that help you process it though, or does it
definitely.
Keep you from it does help you from processing it? It doesn't keep you from processing it.
Right. I think it helps me quite a bit. Yeah. Every time that's happened, it's been beneficial to actually process it with other people and to kind of get their take on it and everything. So.
But to kind of to drive the ship to continue your metaphor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I've worked with you in rehab settings where that's happened, and I think I think you and I think good therapists, and this is a weird phrase to say, but I'm going to say it anyway, they don't waste a crisis. Like if a crisis has happened, they are going to use that and weave it into their treatments, right? They're not going to say, okay, everything stops now.
Right.
We're going to weave real life into what's happening.
Yeah, we don't stop doing groups. We don't stop doing
Everything's going to be
individual
woven
sessions.
in. And we're not going to ignore it. We're not going to say, don't talk about the sad thing. Like, no, we're going to weave it in. And I think that, we have different leadership styles and different therapeutic styles in that way where I think, I'm a lot more emotional than you, and so I'll be visibly hurt. But I think also I know how to use that because I know myself pretty well, and so I know how to steer that into some kind of therapeutic content in the room where, sometimes that's good, for a patient to kind of see oh my God, this guy's affected. Yeah, this is really sad. How do I feel about this? And access that for themselves, especially among men who often they only know how to paint with anger and silence,
Right.
And so to see a man processing sadness out loud sometimes is oh wow, that's how you do that. But as you were talking about captaining the ship metaphor, that is the style I've seen you do. Whenever there's been that, it's more been that steady hand. We're going to stay in the groove here. We're going to keep everybody, in their space, in routine, and yet we're going to organize for this, and we're going to create space with intention. So I've definitely seen you do that. We've been through some shit.
Yeah, we
forget that we did the whole October 1 shooting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happened. We were literally there on October 2, that's crazy, and dealing with all that stuff. So, been through a lot. But yeah, to the writer, good question. Therapists are humans too. I think we're trained pretty well to use that stuff and work with it. It doesn't necessarily stick to us in the same way, but we're still human beings, and that's okay. That's okay that we're touched by our patients' lives.
Honestly, if you've been a therapist for a long period of time, you've learned to do this.
Yeah,
because if you haven't, you're no longer a therapist.
You're not in the profession.
Yeah, because that's why the burnout is so high.
Right.
Because people don't know how to do this, and so it's not for everybody.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay. It's probably better that the people that can handle it stick. So.
Right.
But great question. I always like to get to talk about our trade, so appreciate that. I always like those meta questions. We are going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss asking for a raise. You're listening to Pod Therapy.
And our next Theraproducer sponsor is... Hold on, I lost it. There we go.
Yeah.
As Kayla Lansbury.
Kayla Lansbury.
All right, Kayla. Here is the second trivia question in your honor. So this is classic rock.
Eddie Van
lyrics.
Halen. Final answer.
No.
Damn it. But I could preempt that one.
All right. Well, you walk into a restaurant strung out from the road, and you feel the eyes upon you as you're shaking off the cold. You pretend it doesn't bother you, but you just want to explode. Most times you can't hear him talk. Other times you can. All the same old cliches.
Is it a woman or a man?
What is this?
And you always seem outnumbered.
And you don't dare make you stand.
I have no clue. I have no clue.
This is as enjoyable as I thought it'd be.
Is it,
If you would
I
like
have
to join
one guess.
Kayla Lansbury and make the show possible, go to patreon.com/therapy and sign up.
I have one guess, and I'm probably so wrong. Is it Aerosmith?
No.
Thought it was Dude Looks Like a Lady.
No.
Can I get a hint? That doesn't help me in any way whatsoever. But I appreciate the humming. Also, we need to have a kazoo in the studio. I feel like that would be helpful.
You're right. We have a duck call. Close enough.
That's 100%. That's almost the exact same thing. Who was it?
Here I go, playing the song again.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
There I go.
Yeah. Oh, Turn the Page?
Yes.
Turn the page.
Oh,
Yeah.
what's the song called? Is it called
Turn the Page.
Oh,
That
is
is
it
the
really
song.
called Turn the Page?
Yes.
Oh, I just knew that part of the lyric.
Oh, well,
Who's
that's
that
a good one
by?
to know.
Who's the song by?
Bob
Seger.
Seger.
Huh. I don't even know who that is.
He's the guy who sang Turn the Page.
Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah. I remember that song just now.
Which I think Metallica actually did a cover.
Hell yeah, they
Yeah,
did.
they did. Yes.
Hell yeah. Metallica's my one link to that entire era. If Metallica has
That's not
covered
even
it,
in the era.
I've probably
Yeah.
got it. Bob Seger. God, I could not never pick that thing out of a lineup. But it helps whenever you sing it. Should I ask my
Oh, I
boss
wouldn't know
for
what Bob
a
Seger
raise?
looks like. He could walk
I
in
actually
right
do.
now.
I do know what Bob Seger looks like.
Oh, yeah?
Only because he did a thing. He was in the Eagles documentary because he knew Glenn Fry. And
Did he know Charlie Manson too?
Probably.
Oh wait, was that Eagles?
No,
Isn't
that
Charlie
was Beach Boys. That
Manson
was
the
Beach
murderer?
Boys.
Yeah.
Charlie
yeah.
Manson's a murderer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But
that
he
part
knew
I
the
got
Beach
right.
Boys. He was like friends with.
He was friends with one of the Beach Boys.
Wilson.
With Brian Wilson.
Brian Wilson. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, wrote some
Charlie
songs.
Manson was?
Wrote songs
Oh, yeah,
that
he
he
was
wanted
a
Brian
musician.
Wilson to sing.
Yeah, and apparently a good one.
Wow.
I've heard mixed reviews on whether or not he was a good
Heard
one.
his
Really?
songs were
Wow.
a scream.
I mean, I loved him. I don't.
He's not for everybody.
He's not for
If you
everybody.
read his manifesto, though, you
when
really
Laura
start
stopped-
to dial into the
When Laura
tunes.
stops finally reading Mein Kampf, she occasionally listens to some Charlie Manson
Charlie
stuff.
Manson for some light reading
Yeah.
after she does the deep dives into Mein Kampf. All right. Should I ask my boss for a raise?
Yes. Next
Yeah,
question.
Do that yesterday. When I started my new job, I took a pay cut, but I needed it because I'd been laid off due to Corona. Anyway, I was told that I'd be up for 2 raises. One was post my 90 days, pending a good review, and the other was pending me getting a certification. Well, the review came, and I apparently fell short of expectations for the first raise, though no examples were provided about how I fell short, and I didn't have that certification yet, and that was included in the reasoning for me not getting the first raise. I've been working hard and was told I'd be up for re-review at the end of the year. Well, after talking to my wife, we're hurting for money. She's pulling $200 to $300 from her savings to keep us afloat, even after me putting 90% of my paycheck into our joint account. I've been looking for a new job, but everything has fallen through so far. I'm basically at the point where I'm ready to throw away my self-respect, beg my boss for the raise, and tell him that we really just need the money. Is this a bad move, or should I have a conversation with him? Anonymous.
Okay.
Okay.
Have you ever asked for a raise?
Yes. No.
Did you get it? Oh, okay.
No. I've bargained for one. I've never walked in and said, "Hi, I'm due for a raise. I'd like a raise." I've never done that.
Yeah.
But I empathize with that fear of like,
Yeah.
I think in this person's case, I appreciate the complexity because we could just say, "Oh yeah, go in there and ask for a raise." No, they're saying, "Dude, it's high stakes. It's Corona. I took the
Right.
job and didn't get my full pay because it was like be a team player. We're trying to keep the company afloat." A lot of people resonate with that. And then it's like, do I really rock the boat right now? Like, feel like you kind of owe me a raise, but like beggars can't be choosers. Like the market's flooded with applications right now. But now I'm looking for a job. I can't find anything. But the math is not adding up. Like, what do I do? That's a complicated situation.
Yes. I do want to challenge the writer on one thing. Okay,
Go ahead,
which
'cause
was
then I've got one.
A duel?
Okay.
Is it
it might be the
swords?
same
It
thing.
might be the same one.
Where he's talking about throwing away my self-respect. Yep, to beg my boss. That what you're doing is the opposite of that.
Yes.
You you have a value, and you as a worker need to know what your value is, and that's not throwing away your self-respect. That's having self-respect. So I would challenge you on that aspect.
I'm going to come at that from a slightly different angle.
Okay.
This is not throwing away your self-respect, and Nick is absolutely right. That is, I'm not negating anything that you just said. But my thought on it was, it is not throwing away your self-respect to go to your boss and say, "Hey, my family is hurting right now.
Yes.
I took
Good
this.
point.
I took this job with some expectation. I may have been wrong in some of that expectation, but I still took this job with the expectation that I was going to be up for these 2 different raises, and I haven't gotten either one of them. We need to figure something out here. I need to figure something out for my family. What can we do?" That's not throwing away your self-respect. That is just going to your boss and being honest with your boss and telling your boss what your needs are in this situation. Your boss may or may not help you after that, but that's a different thing.
Yeah.
I've always been a little leery of this too, and I think part of this is just the Midwest Iowa nice thing in me, which is just like, no, I worked.
Do your job.
I worked hard, and I think 5 cents an hour is fair.
Yeah.
And like, but I always have to remember too, like, somebody's making money off of me, and all I'm asking for is a percentage of that.
Right.
The other thing too that a friend of the show, Brian, always gave me shit about was just the fact that, like, I always felt bad about leaving a job to go for another job or something like that. And I was always very loyal to companies.
Right.
And he would remind me constantly. He's like, dude, if they could find somebody to do your job for $5 less
they would do it
in a year, $5 annually, they would get rid of you. And like,
right.
You can't have loyalty to them beyond the loyalty that they have to you.
Yeah.
It needs to be fair. Now, here's the other thing. I can speak to this from the employer's perspective.
Right.
Having been a supervisor, having been pretty high up at being executive director of one agency.
Yep.
If you are thinking about changing jobs, always give your present employer that information, or always give them the opportunity to make an offer.
Yeah.
If you find a better job.
Job. I don't like to
just say,
let them know.
Hey, I'm going to look.
Yeah,
no,
don't tell them you're going to the store.
No, don't do that. But if you have an offer, you can always go back and say, hey, I've got this. Unless your work environment is like unhealthy
Unless you
and you
want
want
to
to escape that,
that's a
then you
different
don't do it. But if it's really just a money thing, going back, because a lot of times you have to factor in the cost of training new people.
Right.
And the cost of running ads and the cost of paying somebody overtime to fill in for you while we get somebody else onboarded. Like, it's expensive to hire new people. And if I could pay more to keep somebody who's already trained and already doing a good job, I will do that.
And not only is it expensive, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not pleasant.
No, yeah, exactly. Because then that takes up my time.
Disrupts the day.
Yeah,
Right.
Then I have to do interviews and I got to do all that stuff. It's a mess. So a lot of employers, if they know you've got opportunities elsewhere and they want to keep you, they will put up a fight for you.
I think that's probably true. That's also the only way I've ever gotten raises is I'll farm a counteroffer.
Yeah.
And then bring that to them and say, I have an offer for X. I'd love to stay with you.
Now, in Jim's cases, what usually happens is they say, "Oh, you should definitely take
You know
that."
what, Jim? It sounds like they're beautiful people.
That's
great for
sounds
you.
like you made up your mind. I don't see any way I can change your mind.
No, but I scheduled. We don't even need to use the whole meeting. I think, actually, I packed up your desk for you.
Let me help you pack your desk.
I actually have a box. It has your name on it too. It's weird. Here you go. So
I've hired a moving company.
Yeah, I've already hired some help for you, man. Also, can you train your replacement? He's actually right behind you.
Shouldn't take you long.
Meet this guy. He's here to help. So to the writer, I think a couple of things that actually make this a little bit complicated for me. So one, I'm all for asking a question out loud of how to ask a boss for a raise. I appreciate in this complicated dynamic though, because I'm trying to think like the employer. And if you come at me and I'm like, hey, when I hire you, let's pick a number out of the air. I'm hoping to pay you $20 an hour. But you know what? Here in the beginning, it's going to be 15. After 90 days, I'm hoping to bump you to 17, pending a good review. And then once you get that certification I need for you, then we'll be able to get to the full 20. Okay, that's my game plan. Great. So then the 90-day mark comes, and the person and it's tricky, right? Because I've heard stories of people getting bad reviews, and it's not that they're actually doing anything wrong. It's that the supervisors have been told, we're not doing raises. Find a problem, right? Find a reason.
Okay.
I've seen that happen.
That's shady.
It is, but there's a lot of bean counters out there that are like, we're not doing this right now. And so supervisors have to find a way to keep people where they're at, and it's all internal. So anyway, that assuming that that's not the case in this story, assuming that something was off center, but the writer says, dude, they didn't give me any answers. They didn't tell me you didn't hit the review mark because of X. They said you didn't hit the review mark. By the way, we want that certification done. Like, that's the only thing that's outstanding. And he or she thought that these were two different things. Like, there was a review, and then there was the certification, and then these enter into two different raises. So I appreciate the complexity that the person's facing. But when I think about it like an employer, I feel like I don't love the strategy of the writer just going right up to the boss and saying, I need to talk to you about my money problems and I need a raise. I'd prefer the writer come to the boss and say, so I was told that I was insufficient during this review. We already have a process for getting this money. I'd like to understand more clearly exactly what I need to do. Nick, as my boss, can you teach me what the milestones are that you're looking for that would allow us to give me that raise? I'd like those spelled out because I want to make sure that I'm meeting your expectations, because I want to make sure that I can stay at this job. This job is only sustainable. I like that word, by the way, writer. This job is only sustainable for me if I can go ahead and hit those goals for you so that we can get to the money that I was hoping to make here. That's the approach that I want to lean in on, because it already assumes that there's a process. A lot of jobs, you don't have a process, so you do need to broach this. You need to go up to your boss and say, we're going to talk about money because you're never going to talk to me about it otherwise. But in this case, the writer's describing two things that are part of a process. The certification, which is apparently attainable, can be done, and some kind of subjective review process. So I would want the writer to kind of redouble back to the boss and say, I'd like to have a meeting with you, bring up money, but then say, it's just extremely important to me to meet your expectations so we can get that money where we need it to be. Mm-hmm. I am very motivated for you.
I would suggest never look at a situation. So if your boss said, we're gonna do raises, we got this review coming, so you need to get a good review. We also got this certification coming for this other raise. Never. So your boss gave you two different criteria there, and it sounds like possibly we might just be misreading this email a little bit or misinterpreting it a little bit, but it sounds like possibly you looked at that as two different lanes. Always look at it as the same lane.
Right.
It's one job. You're one person. You got two criteria there that you need to meet. Worry about both of them.
Right. Yeah.
So say, like, I got to get this good review, which that's kind of on the side right now because the review has already happened. I do want you to get more information about what the review was and what the negatives in the review were. But look at that certification as just as much a priority as that initial review. What would have been great is if you could have gone into that first review and said, hey, by the way, I got this certification.
Here it is.
Now, obviously that didn't happen, and who knows how long this certification takes to
Might be
get. Like that may not be possible. Who knows? But I would say get that ASAP. Because for one thing, even if you go to a different job, I'm guessing the certification probably ain't going to hurt you.
Right.
Sure.
Once you have a different job. So.
And that's black and white. It's yes or
exactly.
no. Do you have it or do you not
Go
have
ahead and get that as soon as you possibly can.
It's a huge chip in your favor. It's not subjective.
No.
The review could be like,
I
don't like, the way you talk to me.
Yeah.
The certification is, do you have it or not?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Anything that you can make objective instead of subjective is going to be beneficial.
Right.
As far as I've got this many positive comments, or I've made this many days in a row without any absences, or I've done this, or especially I've been able to pull in this amount of money, or looking at what I always do in my jobs is I try to figure out ways that I have saved my boss money.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can take on extra
Here are net
projects,
positives that I bring to the table.
Right.
yeah, if I can take on extra projects, I always write that down.
Yes.
So when it comes to an annual review, I can
Yep.
say, "Hey, remember we needed somebody to do this?
Yep.
You know, instead of you hiring somebody to do it, I did it.
Yep.
You know, and I did this too. So I'm going above and beyond. So if you would have spent X amount of dollars to hire somebody to do these jobs, what I'm asking for is 1/8 of X dollars.
Right.
So you still have savings, and I'm making a little bit more.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So making it financially valuable.
And you might not get into the bean counting, right, or, to give percentages on cost, but I love the idea of keeping an achievements list.
Yes.
I've talked about that on the show
Yep.
before. I believe you should be doing that all year long.
Yeah.
After your annual review, you should every single month be opening up a draft email to yourself where you're just logging things that you've done. Because whenever it comes up for your annual review, which almost always happens, I want you to be able to say, so as we're getting some feedback today, I thought I'd start the meeting with just kind of a review, a self-review of some things that I've been proud to work on this year.
I mean, just
That's a
thinking
great way to
about
set the
like
stage.
in our experience working at the rehabs,
Mm-hmm.
the people who we would fight for a raise for.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just some of the qualities that those individuals have.
Right.
There
Make
were
your life easier.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Number one,
Yeah.
if they make my life easier,
Yeah.
I will fight to
Yeah.
get that person more
Yeah,
money.
I like them. I don't ever want to lose them, and I want them to be happy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or people, if something needs to be done, they don't like, ugh.
Right.
And the not my job type
Right.
people, the ones that are like, okay,
Yep.
something
In
needs to
it.
be done. Let's jump in and do it.
Right.
That's kind of that team aspect approach, which is like, they're not, these projects, these items have to be checked off the list.
Right. They
So-
don't dodge work.
Everybody jump in, take a bite,
Yep.
and we're going to get it done. Like those people,
Yeah.
anybody that I can always count on,
Yeah. Reliability.
reliability is very
But
important.
coming back to something you just said that I think actually applies right now to the writer, you're under review. Okay, so you have that 90-day benchmark that happened, things didn't get fixed. We're recording this in October. We're about to turn the page in November. When you're listening to this, it's in November. They said we're going to do another one of these reviews before the end of the year. Okay, we're talking 6 weeks is your window probably. That's not indefinite. I get the financial pain is real. It's present tense. But I kind of want to point out 2 things to you. Go look for another job. I'm good with that. But don't let that subtract from the effort you're bringing to the job you're at right now. Sometimes when we start looking around, we forget and we take our eye off the ball of where we're at right now. Bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. This is the job that puts paychecks into your account every 2 weeks or whatever. And even though you're dumping 90% of your joint account and that's not enough, think about what it would be like without that 90%. Okay, so we still want to value that, and we still want to put 100% of effort into what we're doing right now. And the second thing is, I really, really, really want a conversation that says, at my next review, what items are on your list that you want to talk about? And then write those down, and then strive to shine in those areas and get that cert, like Jacob said. And that way, when you can have that second review, which you're expecting, I want you to lead the conversation. And by starting it off with, thank you for reviewing me today. The last one, you identified these 3 areas you really want to see some improvement. I'd like to share with you how I feel I've been working toward those goals. And that's
And
you
I'd like to
taking
hear,
the bull.
and I want to hear your opinion.
Yep, I
on
want your
these as well.
feedback.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're giving them the preface to start by giving you the raise, right? And I think a lot of bosses, they're managing a ton of people. That used to help me a tremendous amount, in the rehabs. When I had to do reviews with people, it made a huge difference for me when they would sit me down and teach me how they're doing. Because I don't know. I tend to only put out fires. Okay, I'm not sitting around keeping a list of all the best things you've ever done for me. If you got your job done today and I didn't have to yell at you about it, great. I'm moving on to the next problem. Squeaky wheels get the grease.
Kind of like the referees. Like they do
They
a
only
good job
notice
when
you.
you don't notice.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would never know things. So, a great advantage, and I've always tried to do this when I had bosses, that I think was the same concept is I'd like to come in and identify things that human has told me they want done, and then let them know that I did those things and set the stage that way, because you got to do their homework for them. A lot of people walk into these meetings and expect that the boss is some omnipotent God who sees you when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake, keeps track of all the good deeds that you've been doing and should see you for who you are. They're just a shitty human being. And they're just like managing life like you, and scared of COVID like you, and worried about money like you, and managing a whole bunch of other humans like you, and worried about their own jobs. They have distractions. It helps so much when you just walk in and tell them what you're doing right, compare it to something they've said before, and then give them the door to walk through so they can go, great, you did all my homework for me, thanks.
Yeah, I would really suggest just an email or whatever form of communication is kind of acceptable for this. And just say, hey, I see that I didn't get the marks that I was hoping for on this first review. Could you please give me some specific goals that you would like to see me working towards that you felt that I fell short on in this initial review?
Got to have that.
Also, Omnipotent God is a wonderful name for a baby.
Omnipotent God Jobin. Ryder, this will get better.
And has a peanut allergy.
Yeah, and has a peanut allergy. But I like that advice. But also, if you have any of these in the future, folks, if you ever have a meeting like this, I'm a big fan. If you don't get it in writing, after the meeting, send an email to your supervisor thanking them for the review and for their time and reiterating the things that were said verbally. I like having that stamped in an email because then eventually I like you to print that out and bring it back up. But again, humans are fickle. We need to be held accountable. Even bosses do. If you don't remind us of what we've said and then show us how you've hit the mark, we will just ignore you. And if you don't want that to happen, then this is how you do it. You got to be proactive in teaching us the standards that you're meeting.
That being said, the short answer to your question is yes, you should ask for a raise.
Yes.
That took
And
a
that's
long
not
time
begging.
for us to get there.
Yeah.
As a therapist, again, I'll go back to reiterating the internal part of this too.
Right.
Which is just have some confidence in yourself.
That's true.
Know your worth, have some confidence in yourself, have no shame about asking for what you feel you're worth.
Yes. I like the idea of confidence. So yes, I think that's great. I think
we are a therapy show,
Yeah.
so I want to have some kind of therapy aspect to
Yes.
this. Because I do want to
good.
make sure that we're not giving financial advice.
Oh yeah, never get financial advice from us. Good, good idea for a disclaimer.
You will be surprised how well it works though when you walk into a situation and you say like, yeah, I'm this is the money that I make.
Right.
This is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
This is how much money I make doing what I do. And you'll be surprised how far that attitude can truly take you.
Yeah. When you're direct about it, but I like what you're both saying there, which is don't pussyfoot around the money conversation. A lot of times we end up in a conversation about goals and just feelings.
I
and
hate
it's like,
that people are so
money.
uncomfortable talking about money.
Right.
Money is
Tell
important.
them. Yeah, it's okay to bring it up, and it's okay to say
it's the
this
purpose.
is what it is.
It's the reason that you're at the job.
Right.
Yeah.
It is the only reason you're there. You're not there because you love
Believe in
the
the
job
mission.
so much you would just do it for free. You're
Right.
there for money.
Yep.
It's okay to have a money conversation.
Yep.
That being said, you don't want to just walk in and say like, we got to talk about money.
Right.
All right, boss.
Yeah, because they're a human and it's uncomfortable for them
Right.
too.
Yeah.
And, they would love to pay you more, but as Nick was talking about earlier, a lot of times they aren't the boss. Like, they aren't the owner of the company or whatever. Like, they have a spectrum and they need you to justify your goals being met so they can go back to HR and submit that paperwork
Right.
to say, here's our policies. Nick did it. Pay him more. But yeah, I agree with Jacob also. Money is not a bad thing to be brought up. A lot of people are averse to it, but it's very healthy for you to say, my family's struggling financially. I'm here to work. I'm here to please.
Mm-hmm.
How can I do that? Because I want to make that money goal. That's a straightforward conversation. I think it's black and white too.
And it's not woe is me. It's not feel sorry for me, boss.
No.
It's just, hey, I have to do this.
I need to hit my money goal.
Let's have this conversation because I want to know
Right.
how to get to this goal.
Right.
Yep.
I want to know
Straightforward.
I want to know the direct path to get to this goal.
What do I need to do?
Yep.
Great job, Ryder. This will work out for you. And remember, if that doesn't work,
It's not our fault.
Jim will
not
give
not
you a
our
job.
fault. Yeah. And, hostage situations also pay very well. Okay. Look into that. There's just a lot of ways. There's a lot of ways to make the money. So just think about that. All right. We are at the end
Hostage
of
situations do not pay well.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, lawyer, life coach Jacob. Yeah, he covers our ass. So to all of our Patreons, as you
why
are
would
hearing
even
this,
say that. That's a dumb thing to say.
it's midnight. I'm barely here.
Just ridiculous.
This is the first week of the month as you're hearing this. So this is when we thank all those who support our show as theropods, therodactyls, and theroproducers. Remember, if you are a therapal, you're already with us. You're kicking us $1 a month. Consider jumping up to the theropod level, and we'd be grateful for it, and we'll make sure we recognize you, and then we'll recognize you every month from that point forward. So if anybody has signed up at patreon.com/therapy, any day past October 19th, all the way to the day you're hearing this, we apologize that we're not recognizing you on this episode. That's because this was recorded in the past, so we didn't catch that, but we will absolutely
my
recognize
fault,
you
sorry.
in the future. So all of our theropods, we want to thank Adam Petanuzzo, Mats Lenegren, I Have the Knack, Lauren Izzo, Carolyn Albert, Angie Ellis, Chelsea Lamb, Felicia Butler, David Sorensen, Todd Canfield, Elliot Lamb, Sally Boop Scoop, Matthew Nair, Kenneth Liu, Adam Rabiznik, Jim Hunter, Katie Chwakowski, nailed it, James K, Kenneth Soto, Okie Scoop, Chelsea Saracen, Scoopy Jess, Scoopiter Ascending, Don Dorr, Scoopatron, Andrew M, Frozen Cusser, Richard Bruins, Joseph Pengrazio, Carrie Terhark, a.k.a. Nick's sister, Brooks Lyle, Tracy Replogle, a.k.a. my mom, Craig Little, Gavin Bristow, Brad Kefauver, Malaya, Scoopaholic, Jeffrey Ackerman, Three Scoops a Lady, Kate Keller, Scoopsternaut, Tess Miller, Lori Eltsroth, Ian Whitefall, Robert Paulson, Stacy Westerlin, Linda Brandmeier, and Corey Owens.
And thank you to our therodactyls.
Ryan Stewart.
No, the cacaw thing.
Oh.
Jesus.
Ryan Stewart!
Scott's
the worst.
Ryan Stewart.
You just click and point at me. I don't know what you want me to do. You want me to tap
You're
dance?
Right. You're right. You're not a mind reader.
Yes, I want you to tap dance.
Scott Jameson, Reverend Scoop Kevin, Ivan Elsa, Rachel Dusto,
Yep.
Slurpy Kaye motherfucker, Mason Miller, Tom Morrison, Andrea Anderson, Cindy Ash, Lindsay Bashara, Fred Bashara Jr., David Pollock, Ice Blue Scoop, Leon Kassab, Scott Brady, Brian Lehman, and Dan Martin.
And we want to thank our mysterious and shrouded Illuminati Elite 8 bosses of the fan club, which all of you can join, by the way. It's not a reserved club here. Give us more money. But if we still want to thank our producers, thank you Smitty Scoop, Jake Schneider, Robert Brownie, Jr. Mint, Kayla Lansbury, Ellie O'Dare, Judy Schneider, Nathan's Hot Dog Scoop, Dr. Ben Dawn, and ex officio board member Crazy Manana Scoop.
If you'd like to hear this episode uncut and unedited and enjoy our spontaneous side projects, go to patreon.com/therapy, and thank you for supporting mental health.
That is all the time that we've got for this week's session. We want to thank our landlords, the Ice Cream Social Podcast, and thanks to those of you who contributed to our show today. We really appreciate it. Remember, pod therapy isn't something you should keep all to yourself. Share this episode with someone who needs it by opening the episode's description in your podcast app, copying and pasting the link provided into your social media. Don't forget, you can find us at facebook.com/podtherapy, on Twitter at PodTherapyGuys, and at patreon.com/therapy.
Do you want to submit a question to the show? Ask anonymously at podtherapy.net or email us at podtherapyguys@gmail.com. I'm Nick Tangeman.
I'm Jim Jobin.
Thanks, and we'll see you for your appointment next week.
If there is a next week, hopefully society is still here. Hang in there.